Kia karakia tātou, well that's a bit loud. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, ki mā taratara ki tai. E he ake ana, te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. Morena everyone and welcome to the first Planning, Environment and Parks Committee for 2024. It's good to be back the last few weeks. I think everyone's positive, raring to go for a massive year of things to do. We do have apologies for council, on council business we have Mayor Wayne Brown and Deputy Mayor Simpson. They're absent for the meeting. Councillor Fletcher, Foley and Newman could be early departure, but it is a smaller than usual agenda, so let's just not jinx it, so we'll just say early departure, but hopefully we get through all of the business by then. Kia ora. And we have, I don't know if I need to announce who's online. I'll move those, sorry. Second, Deputy Chair Dalton. All those in favour? Don't think I need to announce who's online. We have a number of people online. If you are speaking, I'd prefer cameras on and for the votes as well. I see that Councillor Ferry and Councillor Sayers already have their cameras on. My preference would be, because of some instances last year where where people maybe weren't online, would be cameras on the whole time, but that's up to you. There's nothing in the standing orders that says that, but appreciate camera on as much as possible. Thank you. Right.
Mr. Chair, if I could just say...
Oh, kia ora, I can't... Oh, kia ora, Councillor Turner.
It makes it better for me to leave my camera off and less talking.
Okay, sorry, what was that? You'd have to repeat, Councillor Turner.
Just that the bandwidth where I live makes it more efficient for all of us if I leave the camera off and less talking.
Kia ora, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Councillor Turner. Right. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Confirmation of the minutes. Can I have a mover? Deputy Chair Dalton. Any questions? Comment? All those in favour? Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Right. We go straight on to petitions. We have Owen with Keep Whangaparoa's Green Spaces petition. Would you like to come up to the... You're just coming up on your own. Sorry, I didn't know. Nigel, sorry. If you just want to introduce yourselves, you've got 5 minutes. The button on the right, just turn that on and off when you're speaking. We'll ding you with 30 seconds to go.
Okay, thank you. So, Owen Patterson, I'm the Secretary of the Keep Whangaparoa Green Spaces Society, and Nigel Vary is our President. Thank you for the opportunity to present our petition today. The petition was organised by, I'll refer to it as KWGS as I go through, back in July last year when the owner of the Gulf Harbour Country Club, Greg Oliver, closed the golf course and country club operations without notice. KWGS is petitioning Council as encumbrance to uphold the 999-year encumbrance on the golf course land that prevents it being turned into housing. The petition gained 4,600 signatures in just 4 weeks and has been followed by 2 public meetings, both standing room only events with close to 400 people attending each time. So what is this all about? When Oliver purchased the club in July 21, warning bells rang in the community on Whangaparoa Peninsula. KWGS was incorporated in October 21 as it was immediately evident that Oliver had no intention of developing and nurturing the golf course. Despite his rhetoric, intensing housing development on the golf course land was, in our view, clearly always his goal. Oliver, currently banned by the Companies Office from directing or managing any company in New Zealand, is a property developer with a checkered past. KWGS began researching the planning history of Gulf Harbour and building relationships and raising awareness of the threat to Gulf Harbour within council, the business community and the wider community. Following the closure of the golf course in July last year, KWGS has evolved into a well-resourced, well-funded professional organisation. We have 250 members, 1,250 subscribers to our active Facebook page. We now have expertise in legal, planning, environment, communications and golf with wide-reaching contacts and support. The issue at stake here is not just about a golf course. It's about the vision for Gulf Harbour set out in the Rodney District Council Plan Change 26 back in '95 of a planned integrated community around a world-class marina and golf course. It is about the people who have made Gulf Harbour their home and invested their life savings into a lifestyle and property protected by a 999-year encumbrance. It's about the vision of council and the developers to create something special, an asset for Auckland and a focal point for visitors to our city. Gulf Harbour was not just another housing development, it was a visionary concept combining high-density housing offset by the 90 hectares of golf course land, and that is why the golf course land was protected by the encumbrance. So we're seeking council support. There are still approximately 1,000 dwellings already zoned for future development in Gulf Harbour and yet to be built. These include everything from apartments to townhouses, small lot single dwellings, and some larger lot single dwellings. Although the zoning is already in place, the owners of undeveloped land are in limbo while they await certainty as to the future of the golf course. And to be clear, KWGS is not against the housing opportunities already zoned, even though we are very concerned about the infrastructure capacity of Gulf Harbour and the Eastern Peninsula to handle a further 1,000 dwellings. The 10-kilometre stretch of road, one way in and out from Gulf Harbour to Whangaparaoa town, where Penlink begins, is already a major problem with no cost-effective fix. And Penlink, of course, does not address this particular issue. We know there are golfing interests ready to take over the golf course and who are both capable and determined to operate it profitably. Oliver's rhetoric that the golf club is unable to be operated profitably is respectfully nonsense. The owners of undeveloped zoned residential land and the community in general desperately need and seek from the council confidence in the continued maintenance and integrity of the 999-year encumbrance on the golf course land. Council must not back away from its responsibility to the thousands of people who have relied on the encumbrance by allowing one person to pursue an entirely improper purpose for purely personal gain to the detriment of the Gulf Harbour community, Auckland City, and indeed New Zealand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Owen, and thank you to the members of the, I assume, the community where you live behind you. Not the 4,000 or so, but there,
family and friends.
There are numbers. But thank you for being here and making your way to the town hall today. And thanks also for the meeting we had last year that was, with all the fulsome information. You guys have done a huge job pulling that together. And just want you to know that Councillor Dalton and I, as Deputy Chair, have had a full briefing from staff on all the background as well, just for our own knowledge. We don't have decision-making at the moment for anything that's coming forward. And we know that the currently the process is still underway. We haven't had an update on notification and things like that yet, but we have given our feedback so far. Right, so on a petition we don't have debate, but we do have, I will allow the two Albany ward councillors to speak, to ask a question of you both, and they will also move and second the petition. And we have all the signatures, the online petition already, so there isn't a box to hand over, but kia ora. Councillor Watson, first and then Councillor Walker.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair, and for that guidance. I guess just firstly reiterate your thanks to Owen and Nigel, the KWGS personnel that are here today, because not only do they speak on behalf of the society and the affected neighbourhood, they do in fact speak for the better part of Whangaparāoa Peninsula. This is an issue for the entire peninsula, and they are basically leading the charge on behalf of the community. So my question, Mr Chair, really goes to, and staying away from any measures that might compromise our future position, really goes to the planning history prior and the current planning situation. So I just wonder, Owen, if you could please just explain a little bit more detail the extremely high density that was permitted back in the mid-2000s. That was quite unusual for not just for Rodney, indeed for the North Shore at that time, a very high level of density that was permitted. The quid pro quo that allowed that in respect of the open space of the golf course, and finally how that fits in with the existing capacity that is already prevalent in this part of Whangaparāoa.
There's quite a bit to unpack there. When the Singaporean group came in to develop Gulf Harbour from farmland, the original thinking in Rodney District Council was common practice would have been a blanket, if you like, of roughly 600 square metre sections with housing covering the whole lot. And that would have catered for just under 3,000 dwellings. So the developers came in, and I've met with the general manager, Graham Johnson, who ran that at the time, and they came to the council with a proposal that says we can still deliver your 3,000 houses or dwellings, but we propose doing it in a different way. And basically at the time, and that was around higher density around the marina with the apartment blocks, higher density in between the golf course as it flowed around Gulf Harbour. And so the council adopted wording to the effect that there will be no high density development in Gulf Harbour until such a time. Firstly, they said the golf course land will be open space in perpetuity, and there will be no high density development until such a time that the golf course land as open space in perpetuity is protected by some form of covenant. The interesting thing, so the covenant was finally signed in 2006, and that was at a time when the then owner was looking to develop some of the land, and was reminded about these obligations. The other interesting thing is as we transitioned in 2016 to the unitary plan, there was a review of precincts done, and the planning people in Auckland Council at the time recommended that the Gulf Harbour precinct be retained because of its special nature. The council at the time decided they didn't need to retain that precinct, and because they said essentially the development is complete, and that, as I researched everything, that to me was compelling that they acknowledged the compromise and the trade-off of the golf course. There was no rhetoric in there at all that no, it's got to go. So,
Kia ora, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Walker, last question. Thank you.
Sure, so just a question for the benefit of the public that might be listening and the other councillors here. So just around the covenant that you mentioned, can you just perhaps clarify who the covenant is with? So it's a covenant between the golf course and...
Yeah, it goes with the title or the titles on the land, and so it is between the owner of the land and the council.
That's us.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And would you suggest that, in that sense, the council's acting on behalf of the community?
Well, absolutely, absolutely acting on behalf of the community. And I would suggest at the time that it was signed, a lot of the development had still to take place. It had all been planned out, all the high density, smaller lots had all been planned out, but the community hadn't really been established at that time. So as people bought into that community, they relied on that encumbrance. We've only been there 3 years, and the first question you ask is, what about if they built on apartments in front of us? And the answer was no. There's an encumbrance on the land. I took legal view on it, but people have relied on that encumbrance. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, that's the advice we've had too, that the encumbrance, as far as we know, would be, any decision on change would be up to the council. But just to be clear for everyone here, there is no application for resource consent, plan change or removal of the encumbrance. But we cannot speak about those things or give opinions because we may be a decision maker in any future decisions on that. So the other thing we have asked is just for our regulatory team to keep an eye on the controls we may have around sanitary and other conditions. I know that the community is pretty upset about the state of the course and the grass and potential for rodents and things, so we will keep an eye on that and put what controls we legally can in place as and if those things arise. Sorry. Good. Thank you. Right, we've got a mover and a seconder for that. We have your petition. Thank you again for coming in. All those in favour? Aye. Any opposed? No? Cool. Thank you very much. Kia ora. Right, next up we have public forum. We've had one request which has been accepted. The Onehunga Enhancement Society, Manukau Harbour Restoration Society. We have Jim Jackson. I think you're presenting on your own. Kia ora, Jim, thank you. The button is on the right there. Yes, and we'll just have the same again, 5 minutes, and then there'll be questions afterwards. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and good morning, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and speaking today. So basically, I'm speaking on behalf of the Manukau Harbour Restoration Society and the Tow Society, but effectively, the harbour has a serious problem with management process, which currently doesn't exist, okay? So if we just go to the next slide up there, you'll see a whole range of issues that, and this is me collecting information from a whole range of people. So safe swimming is the most important prerequisite. We currently have people getting sick, suffering from vomiting and diarrhoea after swimming, wakeboarding in the harbour, and also eye infections in the vicinity of Glenbrook Beach, Clark's Beach and the Taiheke River. And when you go to Watercare and you say, well, what are we doing about this? Well, effectively that's not their job, and they do not test for E. coli or E. coli. So we have, there's definitely a problem there. And of course, we currently have a hearing process going on where they're seeking to put more treated wastewater to the harbour. And I guess a decision in 6 weeks' time, we may see an answer to that. We have a whole range of things, runoff, sediment, pesticides, pollutions coming down the Taiheke River from the bank of Pukekohe, and there's some issues associated with that. And then we didn't have any safe 24/7 boat ramps or wharves in the harbour for public use. And the one in Onehunga had lots to do with that. Effectively, it gets clogged up with sediment continuously. You go about setting up, I have consent at the moment to build a wharf at Clark's Beach, and that has been a really arduous process. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. How you get there. So it comes back, you talk to council officers, particularly around the planning department, and the people that I'm dealing with have no appreciation of marine things. I mean, I recall a while ago there was two ladies who spent probably 12,000 of my hard-earned dollars that had no idea between a pile mooring and a swing mooring, and each you are trying to convince them I was trying to do something for the local community. It just became too hard. There's no access to the Port of Onehunga. Basically, I've dealt with Ports of Auckland over 10 years, and I've now, since Eki Panuku have purchased that, again, the inference is it's ours, you're not going to use it, which is so disappointing. We have a problem with Auckland Transport's harbour master. We have, I'll come to that in a minute, I'll show you some photos of that, what's been going on. So really, at the end of the day, cliff faces falling in, the list goes on, and no one cares. And I guess we're not going to change this overnight, but we've got to start somewhere to bring about change. We go to the next slide, thanks. Yeah, so just looking at those, you've got the heads out there. It's a really beautiful place once you leave Onehunga, by the way. And that's the Waiuku wharf that was many years ago. That was how you serviced between the two communities. But you start looking at that river where at Waiuku that is totally clogged up now with sediment as a result of inappropriate reclamations. Go to the next one, thanks. So there's the general aspect of the harbour. It's the second largest harbour in New Zealand. Unfortunately, it's not looked after properly. Next one is, this is just a typical problem. We have navigation markers that are non-existent in the harbour. They're on the charts, but they don't exist. That there is a marker off Clark's Beach, and it's been laying in the water probably for over a year now. And at one stage, the green light was going underwater, okay? You speak to the harbour master, and he said, that's not our problem. And, well, whose is it? He said, oh, it's Coast Guard. Well, that's not their problem. And then, of course, between Kormolis and Onehunga, that's controlled by Eki Panuku now, the navigation light, and they're reasonably good order. Then we have the ones going up to the LPG terminal. There's one's missing there, and that's done by the LPG company. And the ones going to Waiuku, no one looks after them. So who is responsible? Yeah. So go to the next one. Is basically this is an isolated danger mark that's off the Clark's Beach Yacht Club. It's a large rock down there. There's a whole backstory, I really won't go into it now, but basically it was found floating around the harbour, and I gave it back to the harbour master, okay? And he had no idea where it was, and then the new one they put in was put in the wrong place, and then a big tide came through and it swept it away. Next one. Port of Onehunga, I mean, in my lifetime, that there used to be, I grew up in Onehunga, by the way. I learned to sail in Onehunga. It's taken me a whole range of places. Look at the amount of material.
It's last year's.
Oh, okay, yeah, can't hear Richard.
Apologies, we'll be back. So you can just take a... Oh.
We can hear you now, Town Hall. We're back.
We have no idea why, but we're back. So we will unadjourn. That is very strange. So we didn't do anything, but the sound came back.
Thank you. Okay, so basically the sediment that you see on the cliffs falling in, there's literally thousands and thousands of tonnes that's happening, okay? So what happens is that there's currently sandy foreshores there that are now covered in probably 6 inches of marine sediment. This compromises the marine life under the sand or in the environment totally. And of course, eventually it will migrate out to the channels, which reduces the depth, okay? So it has also, it's quite a simple thing, and there are simple solutions to try and resolve that, okay? Next one, please. Again, that just shows you, what's going on a daily basis, okay? And effectively, if I've had quite a lot to do with, I think, Beckers and Council over the use of mudcrete, and you've used it at Mission Bay, Koimaramara, up the Tanuki River, and of course Ports of Auckland has used it for their container terminal at Mechanics Bay, and some has been used at Westhaven. So really, there's this huge amount of material out there that's freely available, can be automated, and you can start to address it. There's people in the community are saying, well, Watercare has a pipe to put in this area. Maybe it could actually be incorporated in such a structure which then provides a walkway and a cycleway connecting Kahawai Point or Glenbrook Beach to Waiuku. That would be a great outcome for everyone, okay? Next one, thanks. So that's Matakawa, our boat ramp. There's no boat ramps on the harbour that are all tied. They're all effectively non-usable. You see that's weed there, okay? So that weed is a result, they believe, of, I had some work done by NIWA and Cawthon Institute as to what was driving that. It's become apparent that the wastewater treatment plant at Mangere is responsible for 50% of the nitrates getting to the Manukau Harbour. And it's that type of nutrient that's driving this weed here. Around Orua Bay, it can be up to 1 metre deep at times after a storm event. But again, these people here would like to that community would like to have a wharf to connect back to Onehunga. It's probably a 35, 40-minute boat trip. But of course, you just can't do it. It's too hard. And we have one here, people driving, more and more people living out there. They want to get to Onehunga as a transport centre, virtually impossible. If we go to the next one, thanks. So a while ago, probably about a year ago, I offered to take out politicians and officers on the Manukau Harbour, and the time it was they wanted to do it, it was impossible. Some would say it's not right, but this is a doc I've put in because I just got so frustrated with council, and there was 30-odd people turned up. The time they wanted to depart and return, nowhere else you could do it. The Taiki River is probably the most strategic piece of water on the Manukau Harbour, and to me, it's currently an SCA2 zoning, but it's very deep water, close to a population base. You can see the development on the other side over there. Coast Guard, they're having a new boat built shortly, and which will be designed to service out to the Tasman Sea. They can't put on a trailer. That's the logical place for it. That vessel on there was recently Watercare had a barge, and that boat there to shift the barge around, and they had a problem with it. And they're working 24/7, so these people were sleeping on the barge, sleeping on the dock there, on their vessel. So you start looking at the core things you take for granted on the Waitemata just do not exist, okay, on the Manukau. Next one, please. So this one is that's the consent we have to put a wharf at Clark's Beach. And it's when you're dealing with the officers, and they want to know what colour the pile is going to be, and have you done a landscape design for it? Are you putting lighting and things? It's just the discussion, and that was about, I don't know, I think it was 20,000 or something, 12,000 to do that. And you look at the quality of the workmanship, there needs to be a formal organisation looking after the Manukau that can start to drive these changes, okay? Next one.
Probably about 1 more minute, if that's right.
Thank you. So this is the Port of Onehunga. This is currently Eke Panuku own that, and they're saying, yes, you can use it, and we're really concerned about health and safety, and so, well, how do we get on and off a boat? There's a chap there climbing down a gangway, down a vertical ladder, okay, which actually disappeared under the wharf. That's not health and safety, and it's basically a facility that's been provided by the people of Auckland, and it should be made available. Currently, it's not. So, in summary, there's lots of things we could be doing on the harbour. The Kaipa received 200 million. There's the Y8 settlement on this Manukau Harbour, which seems to be in limbo at the moment for a range of reasons. But that's no reason why we shouldn't start working out a better management structure. And maybe it's the iwi, it's the Crown community that start to have an authority to make certain changes. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much, Jim. That's quite a fulsome presentation, lots of parts of council. I will put a resolution up to thank and to also recommend to pass your presentation on to all the different parts of council, including Eke Panuku on the wharf and others, to respond to the committee. We also do have another paper coming to committee sometime this half of the year on the Manukau Harbour and the updates from last time and what is happening, all the different various parts of council and what they can and cannot do, or what they have budget for to do, and what we need to advocate for to continually work to improve the harbour. So we do have a number of questions. First of all, we have Councillor Turner online.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson, for your presentation and all your advocacy for the harbour. I can confirm that on the north side of the harbour there is not one boat ramp being maintained and people are having to launch on the beach. My question to you is, have you had much involvement with the shoreline adaptation plan? And if so, could you give us a quick sort of one paragraph comment on your thoughts about it?
I haven't had personally involvement with that process, but I just look at some of the things that I've talked about today, which is the erosion of cliff faces, inappropriate material entering the harbour, lack of boat ramps, and why do we have this huge marine growth of seaweed? And of course, at the moment, we have a problem with mangrove seeds. Now, there's various people who support, and those I'm in the middle, but effectively we have thousands and thousands of these things dropping to the sea. And the smell where they start building up in stream beds is nauseating. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for that comment too. For the first time in my life, I'm seeing mangrove seeds in the Huia Bay and on the Huia beaches. Never before have I seen that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ferry.
Kia ora. Thanks, Jim, for your presentation, and apologies, I did miss a little bit of it, so you may have answered my question when we had no audio. So my query was around the Manukau Harbour Forum, the joint committee of the local boards who all about the Manukau, working together on advocacy, obviously have relatively limited budget. What's your interaction with them? And I guess a request too to the chair that when the Manukau issues come back to us, that we hear from them as well. I think that would be a useful conversation. But Jim, how's that relationship going? And how can we at governing body support it? Because it sits at local board level, which is probably where it should sit, but it seems to me it's missing a bit of regional grunt, that forum. And I know in the past they've approached governing body to potentially put reps on it or whatever. So what's your view on how we could strengthen that? Thank you.
So I've dealt with the Manukau Harbour Forum since its inception, probably 10 years ago. And I guess in that time I've dealt with chairs of that. I think they're all frustrated. They don't have the authority or the expenditure they'd like to do and start a change process, so that hasn't worked to date. And then you start looking at where we go to from here, and I think there should be a much more robust process for making positive changes to the harbour, okay? So looking at the Manukau Harbour Forum, People come and go. I think they have people on a rotating membership, and every 3 years we see a change in leadership. There's not the continuity it should be there. There should be a CEO who reports to them of such entity, okay, and then that shall start to make a change.
Thanks for that. I'll just note some local boards do rotate their representation, but some have kept it constant. I know the current chair, John Turner, was chair last term as well, but take your point that it needs to be taken seriously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor, and yes, definitely keen to engage with the Manukau Harbour Forum early in this part of the year, and definitely when an item comes back to council. The other thing we did investigate last term, it is complex because I think there is an assumption that we can have what the kaipara or hauraki do, but the kaipara was post settlement and quite a different situation there, and the hauraki golfers legislation too, we've got this different model with the Manukau. So where the governing body is actually the decision makers, the Manukau Harbour Forum's advocacy, but how we can bleed those two together, I think, would be something I'm keen to figure out how we do. So kia ora.
Thank you.
We've got 4 more questions. We've got Councillor Watson, Bartley, Councillor Lee, and Member Ashby, just so you know, in that order. Councillor Watson.
Great presentation, Jim. Really, really good. Just a question to you about Port of Onehunga. Like a lot of people, you drive by, you look over, you wonder what's going on there. I did get off it a couple of days ago, and it was just full of people walking along that lovely new bridge and then just stopping at the end. As it stands, no one's allowed on the port itself, and there's no real plans or vision for how it could be opened up a bit more like, down there where it's, money's no object and there's thousands of people.
Okay, so that's a pretty interesting question. Basically, the Port of Onehunga, I've dealt with ports of Auckland for, as I said before, 10 years, made no traction whatsoever. It's owned now by Eki Panuku, and I guess the same thing applies. Someone said to me, that's ours, you're not going to use it. My background is that at one stage they were going to put apartments on there, and that was, I can tell you now, it's never going to happen. A storm event in 1996, there was water just about over the top of the wharf. It's got some structural component problems, and now they've actually abandoned that, which has to be the right thing to do. I mean, it was just so wrong. This should be the most important piece of the transport hub on the Manukau Harbour, and it shouldn't have apartments on it. So some simple solutions. I think Eki Panuku, now the owners of it, need to be working much more proactively with the harbour community and the Manukau Harbour Forum and providing access. In a situation a while ago where a Coast Guard, I have a lot to do with Coast Guard by the way, vessel came in with someone injured. They want to use the Port of Onehunga. The gates were locked, they couldn't use it, so then they have to go up to the Mangere boat ramp, which is all covered in mud, trying to sort that out. They fed the injured person out through the forward hatch, okay? I mean, the second largest harbour in New Zealand, and you're doing things like that, is just so wrong, okay? So I think at the end of the day is that we have to have acknowledgement that it's a facility, it's a public facility, it's paid for by people of Auckland. It should be opened up in a sensible manner. Virtually no bit. I think at the moment it's about 3 vessels there, and it's all to do with the tuna season coming down the coast. But the rest of the year, it doesn't happen, okay? There's nothing there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jim. I think you've really highlighted that the strong need for some kind of governance body just for the Manukau Harbour, given all the operational issues that you've raised. Where do you take it? Do you take it to the local board? There's also Mana Whenua, the Manukau Harbour Forum, Eki Panuku, council officers, Healthy Waters, Water Care. So I think you made your point very clearly and appreciate you doing that. My question is around this government looks like it could bring in the East-West link. Since you're on the ground, you know the Manukau Harbour, you know Onehunga, that side very, very well. What do you think the impact is going to be on the environment there?
With the East-West link? Yeah, so that's something that's is going to be back on the table. I understand this process going on at the moment. I support the concept of the East-West link in principle, but how NZTA was going to reconfigure Onehunga, I had some issues with that, okay? And to me, there's some simple ways of solving the problem, and it's how you get there. it has the ability to damage further of that particular part around by the Sea Scouts and things like that there. But unfortunately, you have a problem that NZTA issues the project, in that case it was to Becker's, and you have this sort of authoritarian attitude, and there's no give and about how to find a problem. So you probably, I mean, I did the Onehunga Bay project, it's about 10 years. It's the largest reclamation ever in New Zealand for its purpose and the first not to go to the Environment Court. And today it's won 8 awards for its outcome, and I think that's quite stunning. It says something, okay? And then I look along the foreshore. We can do the same thing between there and the wharf, and that would solve the east-west link problem, okay? But there's this just barrier. No, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to keep it in the same zone, which does not allow sensible economic outcomes. I mean, council, the Onehunga Bay project, council had a budget of 65 million. I had it priced for 35. About the health of the harbour and how you manage it better. Unfortunately, those people should be at the table. Some years ago, I brought out the recently retired CEO of the Chesapeake Bay Environmental Protection Agency, Rich Patuka, his name was, and he spoke at the water conference and I took them around the harbour and showed them what was going on. And the comment he made is that you need to have, I think the catchment was 18 million people around Chesapeake Bay. You said you just make the tent bigger and bigger to encapsulate those people, okay? Because they had fishermen, farmers, residential properties, things like that. And that's when you start to make real progress. When you exclude people and they get ignored, that's when you have the adversarial process, which, I mean, with the Onehunga Bay project that I did, I mean, there was huge support, but it just didn't happen overnight. I had a few people opposing it. But you look today and think that was a fantastic outcome. How do we do that again? And it's bringing everybody together, okay? That's the thing that seems to be lacking in the process at the moment.
The second part to my question relates to the perception that somehow the Manukau Harbour is not as dangerous as it is. And one of the concerns that I've got is that there is not that widespread awareness because it looks somewhat flatter than the Hauraki Gulf at times. In terms of fatalities and accidents, it seems imperative to me that we need the infrastructure on the harbour to be able to address some of these health and safety issues. Do you want to speak to that further?
Yes, so basically the Coast Guard, I said before, we're getting a new vessel built. It's due sometime next year, I believe. One of the things you put in, there's going to be a large wind farm that's going through a process at the moment off the west coast of the Tasman Sea, and that is going to require support vessels and things like that, so that's part of the process. You start looking at what you've been talking about regarding the harbour. I think it was 1,000 people, it's about 2 years ago now, registered bar crossings with Coast Guard. So there's 1,000 vessels went across the bar, okay, in 4 weeks. That's increasing currently. When you see you go out to Toro, Waiapa, other launching ramps, there's just not 1 or 2 boats there. There's probably a couple of hundred boat trailers there, and they are all serious vessels, okay? They've all got serious outcomes on them. Crossing the bar, yes, it's dangerous. On a good day, it's fine, but on a bad day, you wouldn't want to be there, okay? And the inner harbour, there's a lot of lack of understanding. But when you look at the number of boats in the harbour and the ones that get into trouble, it's a very small percentage. Like any harbour, you know, there has to be better ways of doing things. So I fully support the harbour, the Coast Guard on the harbour, because that's a resource. The French Bay one got damaged, the building there, and now their vessel is in Onehunga at the wharf. But it's not on the water, it's on a boat trailer, and then they've got to trailer it around and launch it. There's one at Papakura, and of course we've got Waiuku, but they're all having to trailer them probably 20 minutes from where they store them to the various launching ramps. Not right.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you. Apologies, Councillor Lee. We'll go back to you and hopefully the sound will stay. It keeps going in and out, and I'm trying to let Jim go home. Councillor Lee.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Jim, and thank you for your tireless advocacy for the Manukau going back many decades. In relation to the Port of Onehunga, as you know, and as we've heard from you, you've interacted with the previous owner, Port of Auckland nowadays, not ports, over a long time, and then the port sold this facility to Auckland Council, namely Eki Panuku. How do you rate, as an owner of this facility, Panuku, in terms of community communications, access, accountability, and so on? Please advise.
Okay, so I have dealt with, as I said before, Port of Auckland, but in more recent times I've dealt with senior staff at Eki Panuku, and again there's a constant churn of staff. You meet a new officer probably every 3 or 4 months, and no one is appeared to make a decision, okay? And so I guess this year I would like to catch up with David Rankin, and it's a Paul Majuri, I think, is the chair, something like that, because to me, I've just reached a roadblock, and you think to yourself, why would I keep bashing my head against a brick wall? Because they just keep saying no. And that is not helpful, and the communication route is such that nothing in the current management regime, nothing's going to happen. So I need the support of the highest level to get there. Okay. And I've offered to put some pontoons in there as a starting process. I've also talked to NZTA and the Crown Linds, I think it is, regarding access further up the on the foreshore there between the two bridges somewhere to get better access, because I can tell you, I mean, I've spent this time getting to this point, and I would suggest that they will just keep blocking me, so then I'll just go and do something, unfortunately. So just on that one, Mike, I mean, this is probably my background. Some years ago, I have a lot to do with Wakarama, encouraging, because I think it's a good, healthy thing for young guys to do. And they have a race between Okahu Bay up the Tamaki River across the isthmus. They push their bockers across on trailers, and they put them in at Westfield. And then they push them out. And then there was a whole lot of mangroves there, and I think someone mentioned the mudlarks from Waiuku. A whole lot of mangroves removed, so they could actually have access out of the harbour, which they did. And I organised PD workers to remove them. Then the next thing was the boat ramp. So I was in America at the time, and a guy called James Sapali, who was a Wakarama enthusiast. So I organised 40 tonnes of roading material to be delivered to Kiwi Rail's site in Westfield. I sent down an excavator and built them a boat ramp. On the Saturday, 300 young guys went through there with no injuries. The place is a tip, by the way. It's got timber and nails everywhere. On Monday, I get this atrocious email from Kiwi Rail saying, you built a boat ramp on our site and you didn't ask. And I went back and said, look, why would I ask? Because you would have told me no, and I would have had a really unsatisfactory situation for these young guys. But I'll tell you what now, I'll remove it, I'll send the truck back and put it back to the state it was prior. And the response was, oh no, you've done a great job, okay? And you're thinking, is that what I've got to do to push these boundaries? And then I worked it with Becca, NZTA, and Fletcher's, I think it was, yeah. And I built the same thing down by Mangere Bridge there. It's still there today, and people use it at high tide to launch kayaks. These are really simple things, and but if you go through a planning process, you'll never get there again. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you. Now,
can I just a quick follow-up, if I could, Mr. Chair, just to come back to the Port of Onehunga question. Port of Auckland, in my experience, and Jim would share this, was never very enabling in terms of public access to that wharf facility. And to be fair to them, they would cite the Health and Safety at Work Act and so on, and there were commercial operations with cement boats and island traders and so on. But nowadays, given it's under council ownership and Panuku control, I just wonder what the problem is in allowing the owners of that facility, that is the people of Auckland, to have some useful access to that facility.
cool. Thank you, Councillor Lee. We'll take that as a comment. We do need to restart the whole IT system, so we'll cut it off at these last two questions, if they could be fairly quick, if that's possible. Councillor Darby.
Hi, Jim. Good to see you. Just a couple of quick ones, Jim, and I'm sure your group has an interest. I've been talking to Councillor Bartley recently about creating greater efficiencies on Nielsen Street, because it's still got car parking on it, doesn't have freight priority, and the whole productivity of that route can be dramatically improved from what we've got. But just on that, is that your observation that Nielsen Street could actually become a lot more efficient if it had some of that parking removed, the big trucks had more room for manoeuvring, there was a freight priority line? Do you think there's opportunity there along that street? And then I'll go straight to my second question. The government is proposing this East-West link because apparently there is need for greater freight and productivity through there, even though we're not actually maximising it within the infrastructure that we've got, which is what I've just outlined. But that it is very likely to be a project that does not get a look in by community groups. You've just commented on Eke Panuku having a discussion with.
And if you take the Onehunga Bay project, there was a lot of pushback to the start with because it was going to be probably the largest reclamation of its type in New Zealand. But eventually, some of the opponents came around, okay, and had full support for it. But again, it's that communication thing. You've got to start working with people, hearing various sides. I don't think I'm a delinquent when it comes to environmental outcomes. I want to see the best, okay? And with Ngāti Te Ara, I get on well with them, okay? And you know, we're all, I think Dame Nanako, she was totally opposed to putting more treated wastewater in the harbour, and which I fully support, okay? So how do we actually start working together and breaking down some of those barriers, okay? Carl was going to come with me today, but just the commitments, he couldn't get here, okay? So that probably also indicates something.
Kapai, thank you.
Good, thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Jim. We can tell that the sound has started again and off again. We thought it was going to be a very straightforward, quick meeting, and that has not been the case. Apologies. So thank you, Jim, I think Councillor Bartley, would you like to move? Councillor Fletcher would like to second. We're thanking you here, but also forwarding the presentation and information on, and we'll definitely be catching up with you again, no doubt. Jim, lots of information there for us to address. Right, all those in favour? Any opposed? All good?
Aye.
Right, so we will come back at 11:15. Hopefully it's sorted by then. We will just take that break, and yes, it's very frustrating. Apologies to everyone.
Test, test.
Is the online, okay, that's working. Can anyone online hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, right.
Yes, thanks, Chair.
It feels like it's going to keep cutting out, so let's just do things quickly, hopefully. We do just have two brief updates. This is outside of, can we please have members of the public sitting in the public gallery? Gail, please. Right. There's no local board input. We will move to, there are no extraordinary items. I do have two issues we're just going to have a quick briefing on. First of all, obviously we haven't had a meeting since December, so this is going to be brief. I'd prefer no questions or debate, but we just need to update. Megan Tyler's going to update us briefly on Plan Change 78 and our correspondence with the ministers on this.
Kia ora, Mr Chair, kia ora, councillors, lovely to see you for 2024. Just a quick update on the letter that you know we've referenced over the last couple of weeks with you, and we've attached in the summary of information items that we've sent to Minister Bishop and Minister Simmons, who are Minister of Housing and Infrastructure and Minister of Environment, respectively. Just to confirm in terms of the Plan Change 78 and all that kind of land use stuff that we've been grappling with over the last year or two, we have asked them specifically for an extension to time on that matter, but ultimately to get a far better and holistic solution for Auckland, because at the moment it's just unworkable and it's for us, and it's just not connecting at all in terms of the outcomes that both we and the Crown will want. So the letter just outlines some of the issues that we've had recently. We've had the storm events in 2023. We've had this new government coming in saying they are going to provide different policies, the ability to opt into the medium density residential standards as opposed to making them mandatory. They have terminated the light rail project, which of course we had carved out because that needed to be dealt with differently and specifically. And they are changing, obviously, some of they've repealed the resource management reform. So there's a bunch of change that is happening here that means that what we're trying to do is just no longer connected. So that letter raises that and has asked and given options to the ministers for various things they could do. So look, the quick update is we did send that a couple of weeks ago. We've not had a response from the minister yet. However, we know that he and Minister Simmons have received the letter, that officials are briefing them on it. The conversations with officials have been positive. So I do believe we're going to get a useful solution here from the ministers. We just haven't heard back. And I know that the chair and deputy chair of this committee and the mayor has been working in the background also on this. So that's my update. We haven't heard back yet, but we're having positive conversations, but yet to hear back. Thanks, Mr Chair.
Kia ora. Thank you, Megan. I just thought that was important to update with hearings potentially coming up soon. Right, the next item on Murawai, have had many questions from members of the public, also members of this committee, also Glenn Wilcox from the Independent Māori Statutory Board. We obviously had the tragic loss of Madison Chamberlain through summer. We won't go into talking about details about that incident, and I know there's an investigation underway, but we'll just have an update on the summer closure and going forward items that may come back to this committee. So Claudia will give a brief update, and once again I prefer we don't debate that, but she's happy to take your questions after the committee or email any other queries you have.
Kia ora koutou katoa, and thank you, Chair, for the introduction, and it is lovely to see all of our councillors here today. So thank you very much for the opportunity to give you a quick update. I know that this topic has been of keen interest to many of you, and our teams have received a number of queries around how council or other agencies will be managing this situation. Before I give you a quick update, I would just like to firstly give our sincere condolences to the family and friends of Maddie as a result of this tragic incident. I can imagine it's a very, very difficult time for them. And I would also ask that we can continue to hold them with the respect that they will need during this time. And this is a complex topic, and I know it's an important topic for many members of our community. Since the event, our council teams have received a number of inquiries regarding how do we, or what steps we can take to improve public safety, what steps we should take, for example, around more permanent vehicle access restrictions, if we should be changing speed limits or implementing other enforcement actions. So what I'm going to do quickly today is just cover the current situation and also talk about some of the proposed next steps. So in terms of the matter around beach access by vehicles at Muriwai, it's a very complex matter. It requires multi-agency input and has been looked at over a very prolonged period of time, including being discussed at multiple committees and local board meetings. We're also very aware that the community views of access to the beach can vary. And so finding a solution that is amenable to all can add complexity. Our teams at Council have worked very hard with multiple agencies, including the police, Fire Emergency New Zealand, our colleagues at Auckland Transport, and of course the local board and our iwi partners regarding the management of vehicle access in Muriwai. Currently, that access is restricted to permit holders. And Council has, over specific periods, closed the beach to access, including to minimise fire or public safety risks. Unfortunately, during these times, we've seen instances where obstacles were moved, cut, or navigated around, and that vehicles still accessed the beach or dunes. Therefore, our Council regional parks and regulatory teams have and continue to work with our colleagues at Auckland Transport, the police, other agencies and our iwi partners regarding how these situations can be best managed and safety can be improved and the environmental damage be minimised. Based on the requests that we've received, we're continuing to investigate further options with the local board and other agencies, including around potential access restrictions, speed limit changes, or enforcement approaches. The aim of these discussions is to determine how beach access can be best managed, safety can be improved, and the environmental damage be minimised. But the work is complex. So what we're proposing to do is we're compiling a series of options, and we're proposing to host a PEP committee workshop potentially in April or May so that we can discuss this in more details, hear more about your views, and then bring it back to committee for a decision perhaps later. I'd just like to end my update noting that the Muriwai community has been through significant challenges in the last year. So we would like to make a plea to visitors to Muriwai and also visitors to other beaches to please follow the rules that are in place. Those rules are there to help protect public safety, the environment, and of course safety for all of our Auckland communities. And we really value the support that our communities can all play to help keep people and the public safe. Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa, and thank you.
Kia ora, thank you very much, Claudia. I hope both those items give you some update on the work going behind the scenes, and just wanted to make sure that you knew that those two were going on. So slightly out of order from a normal process of committee, but both Councillor Dalton and I thought that was important. Thank you for that. Right, we'll move straight on to item 8. I know that Councillor Baker would like to move, and I'm happy to second, but we'll go into a presentation. We've got Craig and Peter. Thank you both, and apologies for delaying your time with the technical difficulties. So you're going to go through a presentation. We'll probably take questions at the end.
Yes, that's right. Well, good morning, Mr. Chair and Planning Committee, Planning Environment Committee. This is about private plan change request in Pukeko East, Golding Road, 50 Pukeko East Road and 47 Golding Road. The purpose is to decide how to process this private plan change to the Auckland Unitary Plan from OMAC Limited and Next Generation Properties. The applicant's to rezone, it's about 27 hectares from future urban to residential mixed housing urban. So, yeah, I'm a team leader in Central South under John Durgood, and with me today is Peter Rayburn, the planning consultant, also reporting planner for this particular plan change. So, over to Peter now, through you, Mr. Chair.
And members do have the presentation in Nexus. We're just waiting to get it up. So, thank you. Feel free to start and we'll try and catch up. Sorry about that.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. Yes, this is a private plan change request for an area of currently future urban zone land at the eastern side of Pukeko. The plan change request is for this area to be rezoned mixed housing urban. So the plan that's on display there shows the plan change area. So if you can picture coming into Pukeko from Bombay, you come into a developed part of Pukeko on the right hand side of the road. This land's on the left hand side as you approach the Golding Road roundabout. So it's 27 hectares with frontage to Pukeko East Road and Golding Road. The plan shows two plan changes that have already been processed in this area. Plan change 74 between Golding Road and Station Road. That was a combination mixed housing, urban and light industrial zoning, and there's about 920 dwellings proposed in that area. And then opposite the site, on the corner of Golding Road and East Street, is plan change 76. That's another 900 dwellings proposed in that area. So there's an association, as I'll explain a bit further, between that plan change 76 area and this area across the road, which would be about another 580 dwellings. So there's a bit going on in the area. Can we just go to the... Yeah. So this is a concept plan of how the zoning could be developed, and the concept planning in turn has informed the precinct plan, which is part of the plan change proposal. As part of plan change 76, opposite Golding Road, there's a collector road connection which goes back to Birch Road, which in turn leads down to Station Road and the Pukeko rail station. So that's an important linkage proposed through this area, and this plan change proposes to extend that collector road. So that's the blue road, and this is part of the requirements for the plan change through up to Pukeko East Road. So that provides, if you like, an alternative road connection between this side of Pukeko and back to the Pukeko rail station. The other particular feature of this plan is that there are a number of stream corridors and wetlands in this area. So the proposal on the plan change is that those areas be protected and enhanced. So that would be part of the development requirements. There's an area shown for a neighbourhood reserve, so that's on the right-hand side of that plan between two of those stream corridors, and other areas, which are the sort of light green areas, which are identified as open space, that are in floodplains, and the proposal and the plan change that they are open space, no building development areas. So we can go to the next slide.
Can you hear me online?
Okay, we know what it is.
Okay. I think, so everyone can hear me online? I think they've figured out what the issue is. I have lost Sandra, but I think we'll continue with the presentation. We do have a quorum, so technically, legally, we can carry on without sound, but I don't think that is very good to those online, so continue.
Yeah, thank you. When this application was lodged, it was the Future Urban Land Supply Strategy 2017 that applied, and under that document, this area was identified as being development ready in the area in the period 2023 to 2027. So the application was made on the basis that it aligned with the sequencing of development for this area. Since then, of course, there's been a new future development strategy, so that was that formally has come into effect in just very recently. And that strategy for this area has amended the development ready time period to 2035. So that's obviously beyond the previous time period. Now that advanced date is based on an expected timeline for the delivery of bulk infrastructure. So that particular matter has been the subject of quite some examination in looking at this plan change to date. So I'll just go over the elements of that just briefly. In terms of stormwater management, the proposal is that be dealt with entirely within the confines of the site, so won't rely on bulk infrastructure beyond the site. And Healthy Waters has been involved in assessing that issue to the point of looking at a stormwater management plan for the site, and there's currently some confidence that that the site can deal with stormwater. With wastewater and water, Sandra, can we just go back to the plan showing the wider area? Yeah, the other one. Yeah, that one there. With water and wastewater, there is upgrading required, but that upgrading is required regardless for the development of that Plan Change 76 area, and also Plan Change 74 for that matter. They are both operative plan changes, and have both got requirements in them that no development can proceed until that upgrading is in place. And a similar provisions proposed in terms of this proposed plan change. But the key point there is that, and as I said earlier, these development areas on either side of Golding Road are integrated, including from the point of view of water and wastewater infrastructure. The wastewater for this area depends on a pump station that is proposed to be developed in Plan Change 76, and in turn some upgrading between the Plan Change 76 area and the existing trunk infrastructure, which is part of an upgrading scheme proposed by Watercare. Similarly, water reticulation will connect to the water reticulation that's otherwise required for development of that Plan Change 76 area. So Watercare, they've been involved in the processing of this plan change to date. There are nuts and bolts to sort out, but Watercare themselves are confident that there's no major issues that would prevent this plan change proceeding at least to the next step. So that leaves transport, which is generally the major issue in terms of bulk infrastructure and what is required to be put in place, and attendant funding issues. So where that's got to is that Auckland Transport have indicated that they're I won't say happy, but that they think that this area can be adequately serviced with upgrading of local roading infrastructure. So that is the Golding Road frontages and the Pukekohe East Road frontage, and also the improvements to the Golding Road, Pukekohe East Road and East Road intersection. Now, the road frontage upgradings are the responsibility of the developer. So that's just a standard requirement that's applied. So that's dealt with, including proposed rules in the plan change, which require those works to be done prior at the first stage of any development. The intersection is required improvements to the intersection are already a subject of Plan Change 76 and Plan Change 74 provisions, also proposed to be a trigger for the development of this area. So there's a number of existing plan change areas that contribute to that requirement, and there will need to be some coordination between the developers of these three areas to sort out how to satisfy that trigger, if you like, and allow development of these areas. Again, that's regarded as being potentially achievable, and whilst there may need to be some refinements to the plan change depending on a closer examination in the later stages of this process, again, that's not seen as a showstopper. So just going back to the future development strategy and the 2035 date and the reasoning behind that, it appears that subject to appropriate provisions in the plan change, this area can be developed without creating any demand on what is not otherwise already planned. So that in terms of the recommendation, there are three primary options for the committee. One is that the plan change be rejected, and that doesn't go beyond this point. The thresholds for rejection are quite high. There needs to be something substantially wrong with what's being proposed, and in this case, this is a plan change that is consistent with the Pukekohe Pairata Structure Plan and general planning directions for this area, and there doesn't appear to be any major reason not to allow it to proceed. The second option is the council adopt the plan change as its own, so the council would be responsible for it from this point on, and there's no basis seen as being necessary for council to do that, and indeed I don't think it's the applicant's expectation that the council adopt the plan change. And the third one, which is the recommendation, is that the plan change be accepted to proceed to the next stages in the plan change process, which is notification, public notification, submissions and hearing. So that's the presentation, Mr. Chair. Happy to respond to any questions.
Kia ora, thank you very much, Peter. Right, we'll just go straight to questions. I think it's fairly straightforward in the agenda and the recommendations there. Just checking. Councillor Darby.
Can we just see those recs? Are they as printed, are they?
Oh, sorry, there was one additional that, as a chair's rec, that Councillor Baker has accepted around staff prepare a council submission on this private plan change, particularly focusing on infrastructure requirements and funding and how the MDRS provisions should be incorporated, approved by the chair, deputy chair and a member of the Independent Māori Statutory Board.
That was exactly what I would have been asking for.
Yeah.
So thanks, Councillor Baker.
Good.
Just a question for Megan. Where are we up to in reviewing the development contributions policy for this broader catchment, not just this particular area, but the broader catchment of Pukekohe? I know we're focusing on Drury.
Through the chair, you made that policy change in Drury last year, where we're now moving into that northwest area. There is a intention to do it across the whole of the region, but it takes time and we can't do everything everywhere. So we're currently working in the northwest, not in this Pukekohe area. So it will be some years away. At this stage, under this kind of process, unless there's any changes to our ability, whether it's legislative ability or our kind of funding and financing opportunities.
And when does the committee next get an update on how that work is progressing?
Good question. I don't know. Let me come back to you. I'm not sure.
Okay. Chair, the point I'm making there is I think we need to, in doing this work, you know, we're pretty hamstrung due to statute, but there's another body of work that you've really got to keep your eyes on because it does induce infrastructure demand and making sure that we actually have the funding mechanisms whereby the beneficiary, the key beneficiary, pays for the infrastructure. And I think that's just going to, considering the decisions of central government in the last week, it's just so critical that we track the funding mechanisms, the financing mechanisms with the development proposals that are coming forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we will have quite a significant reduction in ability to fund transport infrastructure, so that is important, and we'll ensure that finance are keeping us updated on how that side of the ledger rolls out when these things are going on as well. Kia ora, Councillor Fletcher.
Just following on from that, and thank you for the work on this. It was great to have all of those options put before us and the clarity of it. But one of the concerns that I've had, and it doesn't relate just to this, but with the development sector being quite fragile at the moment, how do we evaluate whether or not with these private plan changes, the businesses that are requesting them are sufficiently robust to see the time commitments that are required for the implementation of infrastructure?
Through the chair, I think it's a really interesting point you make. You know, in legislation and reality, that's got nothing to do with the decisions that we make as a regulatory authority or the recommendations that we make, as you know. But I think that goes to the reality of life and what's actually going to happen, whether some of these are going to continue through or whether they'll fall on the wayside. But really, at this point of what we're doing, it's not something that we can take into account.
I realise that, but I'm mindful that in the event that things went topsy-turvy, and maybe it is an issue for us to discuss in other committees that have delegations for those sorts of things, but you end up with orphan sites and inevitably the council will have to pick up the responsibility in those situations. So I just note in a cautious way that is the reality of our current environment.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor. Thank you for that. Are there any more questions? Doesn't look like it. Cool. Right, we'll move to the debate. Ask officers to step back. Thank you very much for your advice on this one. And I'll just check if Councillor Baker would like to lead off and say anything.
I was going to wait to see if anyone else had something to say, then I could just come in at the end and roll in over the top. But
you can get a second. You can get a right of reply as well, Councillor.
Oh, look, I mean, Pukekohe's been through 3 big major planning processes over the years that Auckland Council has been involved with: the Pukekohe Area Plan, the Unitary Plan and the Structure Plan that followed. And this area has been chosen because it's on the east. It is where Pukekohe should be growing, and this just makes sense in terms of finishing off that sort of area, and there's very little risk. And as per anyone that read the report will see, we have no grounds to reject, so we shouldn't be. We should be accepting and let the process be.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Sorry. Right, easy. All those in favour? Aye. Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Sorry, was that in favour or?
That was me. That was in favour.
Okay, cool. Sorry. Bit of a lag from Waitakere. Sorry, Councillor Turner. Right, there were no abstentions. Thank you. That's passed. Right, and thank you for those who are here for that item who had to wait through all that technological issues. So thank you. Right, we'll go on to waste management. We've got Tanya, I think Hannah, just Tanya. I think we have Sarah online as well. And now this was the additional agenda on a different page. It came in a bit late, sorry about that. But hopefully everyone found it. Kia ora, Tanya. Want to switch on your mic there? Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Kia ora koutou. In short, this item is to delegate to elected members and staff
Kia ora, thank you. Councillor Bartley and then Walker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Tanya. My questions are sort of along the same lines as Councillor Newman. I spent Valentine's Day yesterday talking about waste and recycling for Radio Tonga, because a lot of the Tongan community, this is what they requested information on, was what do I put in the bins and which bins? So my question is around, are we getting to our diverse communities who aren't the people that join, that are part of those waste recycling, advocacy advisors? They're not those people. So how are we getting to our diverse communities?
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you, Councillor Bartley. We are really hoping our community partners can help us reach out to various diverse communities because they have very good contacts across a number of communities. We're also making sure that the events we provide are out at some of those festivals, the Diversity Festival, Pacifica, Polyfest, etc., that we can reach out to communities that don't traditionally respond to our consultation. And we are trying to make sure our communications are on diverse channels to reach out to various people and very accessible to everybody in the region.
Kia ora, Councillor Walker.
Sure, so I'm just picking up on the issue that Councillor Newman has raised. I would suggest that there'll be people in business, and there'll also be individuals that may not be part of a larger group, but do share perhaps something across the waste area in common with many others. For example, there are a number of people that have worm farms and the like at home. There isn't a group, as I understand, of people with worm farms across Auckland, but it would be very useful for council to hear about people that share that sort of operation, and there may be other things as well. So I would hope that we actually have a high degree of latitude so that we can hear from individuals who, as I say, may not be part of a formal group, but are representative of people that share a common experience or advice. That would be very useful. And I hark back to my participation together with Councillor Newman as commissioners, hearing the earlier waste plan and hearing from individuals and the like that were knowledgeable around that area was very useful. That also included people that participate in community gardens, for example.
Councillor Walker, is that a question?
So my specific question is, can people that may exist as an individual but are representative of a wider concern or interest participate in this process that you're enumerating under A?
I think there is a degree of latitude that we can extend, and it will depend a little bit on the uptake of the number of regional organisations and interest groups that do want to attend. But where there are people that might be, for example, an interest group through a Facebook group, they would be very welcome to provide those views at that event.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there no more questions? Councillor Henderson said he'd like to move. Seconder, Councillor Baker. Right, there. Anyone would like to speak on this? Thanks, Tanya. Sorry, I appreciate that. Anyone like to speak? Right. All those in favour? Any opposed? No. Thank you very much. Don't think there's any abstentions. Right. Now on to item 12. Oh, I've lost my place now. Sorry, item 11. 10. I'm getting really confused, sorry. Review of the forward work programme. I think, Megan, are you leading this one? Should be pretty straightforward as well.
Yeah, I think it's kind of self-explanatory, Mr. Chair. We've done our best to obviously, both move forward matters or complete matters from last year on the forward work programme for this committee. There is still some uncertainty in some of the areas that you work in, particularly land use and resource management reform. So I guess I'm signalling now there might be some things that pop up or that we'll need to prioritise, and then other things will therefore need to slow down or be deferred. But hopefully, as always, you'll get advice from us about that and what the implications are. So very happy to answer any questions or comments. Thanks.
Kia ora. Thank you, Megan. I'll move and Councillor Dalton's keen to second. Are there any questions? Councillor Darby.
Yeah, just on this, in terms of the Forward Work Programme, Megan, there's a lot coming out of the government suggesting there's going to be substantial change in the planning area, priority projects or projects of national significance, or fast tracking seems to be much discussed, and there are numerous leaks out of ministries, it appears, which the media are picking up on, and that's currently how we're learning about how some of this these bills might be drafted up. It's of concern to me, and I guess I'll frame it through this way. It's of concern to me that the opportunity for councils, Auckland Council and communities to participate is likely to be severely eroded. There are strong signals in that regard. So rather than wait for a bill, how is Auckland Council working with, say, the Auckland Policy Office in Auckland and using all its connections to be feeding back what you know is the council position on making sure that the elected members and the communities of Auckland have the opportunity to participate at the earliest opportunity and avoid a situation where we get possibly disastrous legislation?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. I think it's firstly, it's clear that there are still, I think, some policy elements of, let's call it fast tracking, consenting process that are still just being worked through, I think, with the ministers. That's my understanding. So it's not fully formed. Sorry, that's probably not the right term. There are elements that are still being worked on prior to coming into legislation in early March. We have direct conversations with ministry officials, and we've had some expert staff from the consenting team involved in a small working group that the ministry has worked with in order to help develop this process and legislation. But of course, there are some key requirements coming down from government. So those staff have been clear to put this council and previous councils, it's pretty consistent advice and positions around the role of local government councils in both the policy and direction and the consenting processes, and communities through notification or whatever that might be, or appeal rights. So we've certainly passed that on. The legislation will be almost drafted, I'm sure, by now, and there will be that typical select committee process for the actual bill, which we will provide a submission, etc., and work that through as we always do. But certainly this fast track process, from what I understand, will remove some typical roles of both communities and local government councils in the resource consenting process. So it will be a change for sure.
Look, thanks. And I know it's difficult at this stage because there's so many balls in the air, but I guess I'm interested in yourself, with the chair and the deputy chair and the mayor, staying very, really close to the action. I'm sure you will be, so that the mayor can be conveying ahead of select committee, like back to respective ministers, because I think we're going to have to get that dialogue going very, very early, because once these things are drafted, they are like concrete, as we've seen with the legislation from a previous government. So all power to you, Chair and Deputy Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. It is a lot. The potential new legislation sounds quite different, the fast track, especially when they'll have ministerial power and the panel is likely to have very little ability to decline, which would be quite a big change. So we are keeping abreast of that and looking to what that means for all of us. And, you know, there will be, I'm sure, issues pop up, and we'll just hope that we are aware of those issues before they do. So thank you for that. Any other questions? Don't think so. Right. All those in favour? Any opposed? Abstentions? No, thank you. And then we'll go to the summary of Planning, Environment and Parks Committee information, memos, workshops and briefings. Councillor Walker, second. Councillor Dalton. All those in favour? And that is... Oh, no. It. Sorry? That's it. We almost got there pre-12, so thank you for that. Thanks to the team working on the technology. I'm sure that was very frustrating. And it sounds like we'll be getting it fixed tomorrow for next week, so let's hope that there are no issues. Unahia, unahia, unahia. Ki urutapu nui, ki wātea, ki māma, te nāko, te tinana, me te wairua, e te takatu, koia e rongo, whakairira, ake ki runga, ka tina, homie, huie, tai ki e. Kia ora everyone, thank you for sticking with us with those sound issues and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Kia ora, Chair.